Hi, I'm Caitlin. This is Book Chats, and this is every book that I completed in February and March in one sentence, and also a book that I definitively DNF'd, but I'm not including any of the books that I am in progress on still, because, eventually I'll finish those. Anyway, I initially did one of these for January, but posted it in March, and said that I would be doing them every month, but two things came up. One, I had a truly abysmal February reading month. It was just bad. It was bad for reasons. Reasons that you will know if you have seen my vlog from the Octafinals Nonfiction BookTube Prize. The other thing is that while I am judging for the BookTube Nonfiction Prize, I'm not supposed to post my thoughts publicly about a book anywhere or discuss it with anyone who could be a judge until the round is completely over, which they're 2-month rounds. So if I had completed any of those books in February, I couldn't have given thoughts or sentences, and I initially thought that I would just put the cover up and then do something later, but I figured after I had such an abysmal February and I was just behind in everything, that while I'm judging, in rounds that I'm judging, I will just do bi-monthly, like every other month, at the end of the round. So, and of course I'm now filming this in April, so you won't see one of these at the end of April, but you will see one of them at the end of May, covering both of those months. All right, all of that out of the way. What did I think about the books I read in February in one sentence? I completed 3 books in February. It was a real reading month. That it did exist. But the first one that I finished was Enola Holmes and the Black Baroche. I know. Listen, I have a whole video about why I don't like this series, but I also realized that there is a real dearth of mystery books for small children. By small, I mean like elementary school age children out there. So I understand why it's popular. Here's my sentence. I thought that this was probably the best or least offensive of the series to date, and actually it has a pretty good summary at the beginning if you want to just skip directly to this book. It felt the most like the movie, but it's still just really white feministy, and I hope that there are better mystery series out there, although I am now struggling to find them. So drop your recommendations down below. I'm working on my list. The second book I finished in the month of February was Hello Stranger by Lisa Kleypas. This is continuing on in a romance series that I've been reading this year. I have been enjoying this series, and this one had a really strong non-romance storyline too, which was quite enjoyable. So I actually thought that this was my favorite of the books I read this month, even though it was not a 5-star book for me, which is a little hard because I had 2 5-star books in January and I had to pick between them. In February, I only read 3 books and none of them were 5 stars. So this was the best of the 3. And the third and final book that I actually completed in February was Culture Warlords by Talia Lavin. This probably would have worked better for me as articles that I was reading in like The Atlantic or The New Yorker or various other publications, but as a book, what ultimately happened is it felt immediately outdated despite having been published in, I think, 2020? Was it published in 2020? Anyway, it felt immediately out of date because of the events of January 6th, 2021. I'm not sure that a book is the right format for this particular type of reporting. Anyway, that is everything that I finished in February, and I don't have anything listed as a did not finish because I think everything I was in progress in, I either finished in March or I was hoping to finish in March, or I'm still hoping to finish. So how did that contribute to my goals? Bupkis. I got no non-white authors on the list, nothing off my Twitter TBR. I did not unhaul anything, although I did incorrectly say I didn't unhaul anything in January, but I actually recycled a book in January that was A Touch Mortal that I DNF'd, so I did unhaul 1. So I have 1 there, and none of these were rereads, so it was great. But the one good thing that I did in February is I did post my video of everything I spent on books in 2021, so if you haven't seen that, I'll put a card up there in the corner. This is a project I'm starting to do every year to just keep track of how I'm spending my money on books. So what did I read in March and how did I feel about them? Well, I finished a lot more books in March. I can tell you that for sure. Did I like them better? Some of them. Some of them I liked better. Unfortunately, the first book that I completed in March is honestly the reason that my February reading was so terrible. I finished it just after midnight on March 1st, and that was The Plague Year by Lawrence Wright. It was too soon for this kind of broad retrospective to be written about 2020 and specifically about COVID in 2020. I found that it was too trusting of authority structures and institutions, and I think that this book was just written at the wrong time and therefore didn't have the insight it should have. The second book that I finished in March was A Low Country Bride by Preslesa Williams. This had really interesting character backgrounds, and the setting was interesting, but the romance felt slightly underdeveloped to me personally. I'm definitely interested in more by this author and seeing how Preslesa's writing develops, because I know this was her debut. The third book that I finished in March was On Animals by Susan Orlean. I listened to most of this on audiobook while I was cleaning and organizing, and I found it to be a collection of well-written essays, but most of the essays were old and they weren't very well connected together. I think the earliest was from the early 90s and only 2 were written after 2010. And so that was just not helpful to me, and I didn't really think that, I don't know, it was just a 3-star collection, okay? The fourth book that I finished in March was Diary of a Young Naturalist by Dara McAnulty. The nature sections of this book connected to me less than the parts where the author was talking about moving and living as a teen and living as a teen with autism. It also was actually a diary, and that was surprising to me, which is silly because it's exactly what the title said it was. Ultimately, I thought that this author, I'm very interested in what they write next, but this particular book I would only recommend if you're already interested in it specifically. The next book that I finished in March was Just Last Night by Veri McFarlane. Wow, this book, I put it on hold at the library and completely forgot why, and then remembered after I started reading that is that because someone comped it to Evie Drake Starts Over, which was my favorite book that I read in, 2019? And that comp was no joke. This is a hard-hitting romance that doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, but it's not really trauma porn either. It feels very real. It has just an amazing group of friends at the core, but that group of friends, not everything is perfect there. I need to stop talking because it's only supposed to be one sentence, but I loved this book. After Just Last Night, I finished Fuzz by Mary Roach. I thought this was really classic Mary Roach. It will appeal to fans of her other work. If you liked Grunt, if you liked Gulp, you'll probably like this book, but if you didn't really like Mary Roach, you probably won't like this one either. Unless the only Mary Roach that you've read is Stiff, and then you should give one of her other books a chance, I recommend Packing for Mars. After Fuzz, I decided to reread, ding ding ding, The Heiress Effect by Courtney Milan. I reread this because I just really wanted to reread Oliver falling in love with a woman that he knows he shouldn't fall in love with, and who isn't the diamond of the ton. I, on this reread, really loved Jane's autonomy and self-respect. It just gave me a lot of good feels, and I love this series a lot. After that, I happened to get The Devil Comes Courting from the library, also by Courtney Milan, and I think that this one, I personally, my enjoyment of it suffered from the fact that this is in a different series, and I should have reread the first two books in a novella. Anyway, I should have reread that series from the beginning so I would remember who the characters are and how they're meaningful to each other. After The Devil Comes Courting, I was a little bit sick, but I managed while I was sick to read Crying in Hmart by Michelle Zauner. This is a spectacular memoir. There is a reason it has so much praise. I know that you're probably feeling like it's overhyped by now. You've seen everyone talk about it. But the reason people are talking about it is because it does such a good job engaging with several really difficult, interesting topics, like mother-daughter relationships, being bicultural and biracial, losing your mom, and then having to deal with the fact that your mom, who has now died, was your kind of connection to that culture, and really loving food, which was hard for me reading it when I was sick because I kept wanting to eat the foods that were mentioned, but I could not eat the foods that were mentioned because I was sick. So I cannot recommend Crying in Hmart highly enough. I did cry multiple times reading this book. It was really emotional, so be ready going in for that. But this was my favorite book of the month. Just best book that I read this month. And I read some great books in March. Then after that, I went straight into reading Black Silk by Judith Ivory, which is like an old school 80s or 90s romance that I watched a video on Twitter that was from TikTok where someone was sort of defending that older romances could be more complex than people's stereotypes of them. My problem with this book, it had interesting three-dimensional characters and interesting things happening, and definitely the author was skilled. But she did not sell me on the main couple being a functional, healthy, in any way couple that I would want to support at all. And I think I said this in a previous draft of this video. I would think it would be interesting to be friends with any of the characters in this book, but I would not date any of them, and I don't think they should have dated each other. So when you're a romance novel, your whole intention is to sell me on this main couple. So even though this book was very well written, it was just no, it did not work for me because it didn't do what it was supposed to do. It didn't sell me on that couple. Finally, the last book I snuck in right at the end of the month was Gratitude by Oliver Sacks. These are 4 short, neat essays that are probably best for fans of Sacks's other work. I have not read of any of his other books yet, but I have them on my TBR, so maybe I'll branch out to them. But not having that context, they were just fine for me. It was a fast read at the end of the month. Finally, the book that I did not finish in March was The Enlightenment, The Pursuit of Happiness, 1680 to 1790 by Richie Robertson. You can see my struggle to read this book in my BookTube nonfiction vlog. I really try to finish the books. You are supposed to finish the books for that. But this was like 760 pages of dense, boring material about the Enlightenment that I was totally uninterested in, and I could not see my opinion of it changing as I continued to read because the book was not changing as I continued to read. It was 700 plus pages of the same. So I just ran out of time at the end of the month, and I chose not to finish it, which... judge me down below, but that is what I will say about that. That's everything that I completed in February and March, and my one definitive DNF in one-ish sentence each. How did I do on my goals after my reading in March? Slightly better than in February. 4 of the books that I read were by non-white authors, so I'm up to 9 out of 50 there. And 1 of the books was a reread, so I'm up to 1 out of 12 there. I didn't add anything else at all in March. But coming up, y'all know, in April, we have made some progress on videos posted, so I'm excited about that. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know down below if these are interesting to you, just thoughts, all of that jazz. I will not be posting one at the end of April. I'll be waiting until May so I can talk about all the books that I'm reading for the BookTube Nonfiction Prize, but I do have other plans for videos in May about April, aka it's Independent Bookstore Month soon. So, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.